Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psych Reg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back. Today we're going to review an article that has probably the best title.
Absolutely. As soon as I saw this, I said, first of all, I have to read it. Mm-hmm. As soon as I started reading it, I said, we got to talk about this.
Right. It's an article by Dr. Mark Borghini.
I think
Is that
so.
How we...
I would say Borghini.
Borghini.
Mm-hmm.
And the title...
pardon us if we get it wrong.
That's right. But the title is, well, you might as well eat that donut.
Let me repeat that. Well, you might as well eat that donut.
Right.
You have to love that title. Yeah. I'd love to talk to that. I'd like to have breakfast with him. We could have donuts or pecan waffles or something. But what a great title, you know.
That's right.
Oh, we got to talk about this one.
That's right. And he talks about an article published in the Journal of Molecular Psychiatry from a few months ago. Right.
Because it's a serious topic.
It is a serious topic.
We joke about the title, but this is really a really an important topic,
right? Because
it's probably affecting most of us who are trying to lose weight in one way or another. Right. So there's a real important message here under the comical, humorous title.
Right. Well, I think, but as we get started into this article, I think it's important for us to say something about why we keep talking about. You know, we've talked about diet, we've talked about exercise. When we talk about these things often, right. And the reason that we do is because there is clearly a connection between stress and depression and anxiety and some of these lifestyle things.
Right.
And you know, anxiety is one of, if not the most common psychological condition that we experience. Yeah, right. Depression is a close second. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important that we talk about these things because, you know, most people who suffer from or experience some of these symptoms don't want to be on medication.
Right.
So if we can identify simple life strategies that you can use to manage your anxiety, your stress, and your depression and all of that, then why wouldn't we talk about that?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you talk about stress because obviously where this article's going is you might as well eat the donut because something else is at work.
Right.
And it may not be your diet that is the problem. It may not be the food you're eating that's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So in this study from the Journal of Molecular Psychiatry, they talk about some research where they looked at women who were given a particular diet. They were encouraged to eat a very prescribed meal plan.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they found that there were women who did well on the meal plan, and then there were women who didn't.
Right.
And they found that sort of the climax of the story is that the women who didn't do as well with it tended to have higher levels of stress.
Right.
And so what they're concluding is that it's very probable that despite your diet, despite working really hard to lose weight by cutting calories and eating healthy and all that kind of stuff, a lot of that can be undone if you're experiencing chronic stress and you're not managing that stress in a healthy way.
That's right. And what I like about this study is that the women were all about the same age. The average age was 53. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they were. I love the meal that they prepare. And the difference was, I think they controlled the amount of fat that was used. One of them had a high fat meal. One of them had a low fat meal. So they controlled the diet, and what we would call the experimental group went on what would be closely related to a Mediterranean diet. Right. And we've talked about that Mediterranean diet on the program before. So it was a pretty well-designed study. Mm-hmm. They controlled as many factors as they could because they were looking for the effect that stress played, and if that made a contribution to how much weight each group was able to lose.
Right.
Okay. Control everything else, but see the effect of anxiety or stress that it might play.
And we've talked about it many times before, but when we're under stress, our body doesn't differentiate where the stress comes from,
Right.
and so stress is stress.
Stress is stress, right.
And our body responds with what we call the stress response,
Right.
and it automatically it's sort of by default, our body under a stressful condition will perform particular behaviors, and one of the things that it does is it says basically, we need to hold on to energy reserves because we don't know when we're going to need it again. We don't know if we're going to eat again. And so we need to hold on to energy reserves. And what do we call energy reserves? But fat.
Right.
It's stored as fat so that it can be used later on.
Well, and what we need to understand, and I think it's especially true for women because of their childbearing potential. I think we are very efficient fat storers.
Right.
Our bodies are really, over the millennia, our species has become very, very efficient at storing fat.
Right.
Because it wasn't until the last probably 80 years or so that we've had a reliable food supply. Before, people, I mean, even today, people in some countries have experienced yearly famine if the crop doesn't come in as intended, as planned. And so it's only been in recent history that we've had an abundance, a surplus of food in most countries. Okay,
Right.
so over time we've gotten very, very, very efficient at storing fat.
Right.
I mean, people say, well, I change my diet just a little bit, or I binge a little bit on the weekends and I get fat. I can feel it. Yes, that's because you're very efficient at storing those extra calories.
And it's also for this reason that we see people who, significantly cut calories, but don't lose very much weight.
But you don't lose weight.
And it's because you're still experiencing so much stress from either other sources or sometimes just the mere fact of cutting back significant calories puts your body under stress.
Right. And as you said a minute ago, stress is stress, and your body doesn't differentiate.
Yeah.
I might be under stress right now because I'm doing my income taxes, okay? But my body doesn't know that.
Right.
My body is thinking there's not enough food around. This is one of those famine periods.
Right.
So I need to store all this stuff.
Right.
Because it doesn't differentiate between income taxes and famine.
Right. Okay. Right. So when we're thinking about, if you're out there and you're trying to get healthier and lose some weight, or you're trying to get more fit, one of the things that you really want to consider is the incorporation of some type of stress reduction, whether it's just simple, breathing techniques or relaxation techniques, or if it's meditation. It's really important that you implement something that reduces your baseline stress, so that you can optimize your body's response to the other things you're doing to try to get healthy.
That's right. And I'm going to almost repeat what you just said, because we always say, well, you should exercise because that reduces stress. But a lot of people either can't exercise or they don't want to exercise. Okay.
Or they over exercise, which puts your body
More
in stress.
Right.
If you're exercising because you got to exercise, 45 minutes to an hour a day.
Right.
You're putting your body under a tremendous amount of stress, and you're not allowing it time to recover.
And not only physical stress, but you're saying, okay, I have to hurry up and get everything done because I have to exercise for an hour before I go home. Maybe what you should we just want you to reduce stress.
Right.
So maybe the best thing for you to do is yoga or meditation or other kinds of quiet exercises that work for you to reduce stress.
Right.
And you may want to you may be the type of person who needs to do some stress reduction several times a day, rather than going out for a 3-mile run every day that you stress about. Right. So don't stress about exercise or how you're going to get rid of it. Do what works best for you. And if you don't feel like exercising, that's perfectly okay. Do yoga or some other type of meditation.
Yeah. Okay. And all your exercise really even has to be just a 30-minute moderate walk. Just a short, 3 or 4 times a week. Exactly. That's it. That's all. Right. The research says that is an amount that you see benefit. It doesn't have to be, heavy weights in the gym. It doesn't have to be strong running or jogging, cardio for 5 or 6 days a week. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It can be if you choose it to be, and it works for you. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But if not, just go for a moderate walk a few times a week. Right. That's good.
Right. It's not surprising at all that Winston Churchill and George W. Bush and other political leaders took up painting as a hobby because that's what they found relaxing.
Right.
So you don't have to run marathons. It's perfectly okay to take up some other hobby that allows you time to relax, calm down, and get rid of the stress.
Absolutely. Okay. So, all right. I'll have a link to the show notes, in the show notes for this article. So if you want to read it, that would be great. You'll enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So that's it for today?
Yes.
All right. So until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid. Did you hear that?
Afraid. He meant afraid.
Forget to be afraid.